TGIF family, TGIF. I am popping up, popping in, popping out. This is the very first Facebook Live pop out brought to you by yours truly, Seeds and Berries, Alia Berry pop up, right? This is a live pop up. So this is different than family. This is different than sidewalk talk, though, right? So first, let me just introduce myself. My name is Alia Berry. I'm a community-based social worker here in the great, mighty, revolutionary city of Newark, New Jersey. I have 20 years experience working with ages 0 to 60 in a variety of settings, from schools, daycares, shelters, correctional facilities, with a special focus on individuals before, during, and after incarceration. I'm a full-time consultant with Seeds and Berries. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, myself, Alia Berry, on LinkedIn, and find this and other content on the YouTube channel at Seeds and Berries. So that's a little about me. I'm excited to be here. This is different. If you are familiar with my other content platform, which is called Sidewalk Talk, right? So Sidewalk Talk is where we gain insight, we clarify misconceptions, and we get a call to action from frontline workers in the city of Newark on a variety of different topics, right? So that Sidewalk Talk, this whole month, Sidewalk Talk has been focused on mentoring, right? And so my thing is, at this point in time, is there is so many more things and so many more topics to discuss. There are so many more conversations to discuss. And so I was feeling a little limited by the schedule of Sidewalk Talk, right? The Sidewalk Talk does kind of themed months. And so, like, if I want to speak on things that need to be spoken on, then I'm going to speak on them outside of a schedule. And so this is a pop-up, right? Facebook Live pop-up. And so I'm going to do some deep dives into hot topics and current events. And yeah, so this is it. This is a premiere idea, new content creator, feeling a little inspired. The thing about pop-ups also is that they're much shorter. They're more conversational. And again, we're just going to be speaking on things that need to be spoken on as I feel led to speak on them. So no schedule, very, little advanced promotion. You just got to catch it when you catch it. And this will also be on the YouTube channel. So make sure you continue to check it out. But this is the very first one, right? And so the topic tonight is an extension from last weekend Sidewalk Talk, where we were talking about mentoring girls and women, right? Specifically Black and brown women and girls, right? And so me and my guest, Kiyyannah Brison, drum roll for Kiyyannah Brison, who is a local professional mentor. She has experience in substance abuse, alternative ed, shelters, group homes. She has tons of experience on these front lines. And so me and her were talking about mentoring. And there was more things to be discussed. She was starting to touch on certain things that I just, like there were just stones that weren't quite turned over, and it was a little bit more than mentoring. And so this is where this pop-up idea came from, which is I want to talk more about that. So welcome to the very first pop-up. Again, we're going to speak on things that need to be spoken on. Like, tag, comment, and share for impact, because me and my guests have a message that we want to share with who needs it. And yeah, so like, tag, share, and comment for impact. And also pop-ups are much shorter. So tune in. We're going to get into this conversation right away, and we're going to have some impact and have some conversations that need to be had. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my mighty, powerful sister, Kiyyannah Brison. Hey!
Hi, Barry.
Hey! So Sidewalk Talk is much more informal, right? It's much more informal. Right. It's much more conversation based. I don't know who Kiyyannah is, but this is Brison. And I am Berry, because we've come in schools, and your last name becomes your first name. How are you doing tonight, Miss Brison?
I'm excited to be here tonight. Thank you for adding this to your lineup and inviting me back.
Yeah, no, so as I explained to the audience already, we started touching on much deeper issues, right? Like we were talking about
Right.
mentoring. You laid a really dope foundation of what mentoring is and how to go about it, and then the differences between like mentoring girls and mentoring, young men, and like what is the difference between mentoring the two. And so there was more to be said. There was more to be
Absolutely.
said. And
Absolutely.
so here we are on this pop up to discuss society's love hate relationship with black girl magic, because that is what you were touching on. And so we want to
Absolutely.
dive deep into it.
Let's get into it.
Yes. So so just like explain this topic, like this, how we together, how we phrase this. Like explain from your perspective what this looks like, what this means from your perspective.
So we've heard of the hate our rhythm, love our blues,
Mm.
right? We've heard of that, right? So what it means is that black women are consistently downplayed for a whole lot of things that society then secretly loves, right? But when a black female do it specifically, there's so many issues with it, right? We get so much grief from things that everybody do, but it's only criminalized and objectified when it's a black female. We are the most unrepresented, right? Out of all the populations, right? Um, we're marginalized population, right? And we're oppressed, essentially, right? So they want our rhythm, but not our blues. They want to dress like us, they want to talk like us, but we just can't do it, right? And because we present with a certain personality, we're vilified
Mm.
and unvalidated
Mm.
because of it,
Can you give
right?
some examples that are specific?
Okay, so the black girl, the angry black girl talk,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Is used to downplay the fact that black people have a right to be angry,
Mm.
right? But if you're angry, then the message is, oh, she's just angry. And they use that as a way to backtrack or release accountability from the actual action that made us angry or
Mm.
whatever like that. Well, the truth is, you could be emotional and rational at the same time, but they make black women feel like you can only be one. So if you want to be heard and understood, then you can only be rational.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the minute you show any emotion, frustration, anger, or anything like that, then you're just that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to talk about that. You just validated yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then in regards to like how it really looks and plays out, right? Because like on Sidewalk Talk, you started to talk about like and one of the audience members had said like we're just so misunderstood, right? And so like how, especially, and you can still tie it back to mentoring, right? But it's
Absolutely.
kind of more in this context is like how how does that play out? Like what is being misunderstood?
Being misunderstood is it's for us like we so it's not this cold language. It's not a secret, right? It's done intentionally, right? That's how oppressors keep you oppressed, right? To make it seem like it's just cold, it's exclusive to just us, right? It's not. It's just easier to pin on just us, right? So one of the things black women are lazy, right? We don't want to work. We want handouts. We want wealth, and that's just not true. Is that every time we try to climb the bar, they set the rules higher, right? So before, let's say the workforce, to get a job, you need a high school diploma. Black women started graduating high school and become more educated. Now you need a college degree. Black women are now leading college sign-ups in college degrees, and now they want master's degrees, right? So we're not lazy. You just keep raising the bar.
Mm.
You just keep raising the bar, right? And then you put stigmas in place that try to make it unobtainable for us
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So we are misunderstood, but intentionally misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an accident. It's
Mm-hmm.
by design. It's systematic
Mm-hmm.
because we were never designed to be anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. What kind of impact does that then have on, like, for example, um, like when you're mentoring, right? And you're mentoring a girl who then feels misunderstood not only by um, like systems, but by everyone, even her own community, her own family. Like, if she's feeling misunderstood by everyone, because you're talking about the macro level, right? But then even within our community, where does that misunderstanding, how does it play out? Even like by schools and teachers and,
So again,
administrators.
that's part of the design, even on a micro level, is part of design because it's conditioned behavior, right? If everyone points fingers at you and build walls against you, right? First of all, it strips you of your self-esteem, right? You start to believe, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? I'm never going to get anywhere. I can't beat this. I can't do better than what I've done. You feel cornered, right? Your family is against you, telling you, no, you can't do this. The society is against you, saying, hey, you can't do this. The systems are against you, saying, we're not helping you. Where do you go? This is why mentorship is so important for me, because there are those of us who have beat it, who are coming out of it, who know the path to take. We need to go back and make sure we're bringing people with us. Each one teach one. We forgot that, right? We forgot that role, right? So it's our job to go back and get in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and to show them that they are going to pound on you, they are going to beat on you. You're not going to get the help you think you deserve, right? But there's a way you can get out, and it's our job to show them those routes through the experiences we had, or whatever. So when you're talking about specifically young mothers, right? How do we help them? What does that look like for them? I've had plenty of experience with young teenage mothers, so I absolutely know. When you don't come from a very supportive family, right, and you don't have a privileged background, right, it's a repeated cycle like the Twilight Zone. Like your every day is the same. You don't see a way out. Your brain is distorted. You start to believe what society is starting to teach you, and then you lose hope. And that's how our girls are devaluing themselves. Once you lose hope, there's nothing there anymore. There's no motivation. There's nothing. You don't believe in yourself.
And so different, like, just to identify different like mechanisms that I think like do then affect the hope and affect the self-esteem, right? So like if we're saying, from the morning time when she gets up, right? So she wakes up in the morning, and she may live, and I'm going to mention two different kinds of homes because you also said a privileged background, but we also know Black girls that being raised in privileged backgrounds also may be struggling with self-esteem and hope and things like that, right?
Because she's so Black.
What? Right. And like depending on the home, right? So like, she could wake up in the morning and be waking up in a toxic home, right, where there's yelling, lack of supervision, overwhelmed with like trying to get siblings ready to get to school, and like, washing uniform shirts in the sink, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's also another girl waking up in a mansion, right, with the parents, like, or mother already at work, the nanny who is there 24/7, right? Who like, and the girl may have all her uniforms all lined up in the closet, but doesn't have like the support that she's looking for either. So she wakes up in the morning, she goes on Instagram, and she begins to see different like videos and memes and things like that. And so like, what impact would you say even media first thing in the morning tells her what she is, how she shouldn't be, how she should be? Like, how does that play into things? And like I said, first thing in the morning.
It's all a mental game. And that's why if you're not mentally prepared, you should stay away from social media early in the morning. The first thing you need to look at is something positive, something restoring, something that empowers you. Remember this show, Being Mary Jane, how she had all these sticky notes of positive affirmations? That I'm so big on it, because the first thing you see or read does stick with you the rest of the day. So when you're waking up looking at something that destroys the whole image of you, right? The whole image of a Black woman, right? And then it's then telling you that this is what a Black woman is, and deep down inside you're none of those things, right? It makes you feel less valued as a woman, because everything that you are, they're talking negative about it, right? And everything you're not, they're glorifying, right? So then what does that say about me? I'm not what they say I should be. I am all the things they talk negative about. who am I then? Or what am I?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And unfortunately, we have a thing where we believe the naysayers,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially when it's in your face every day. It's social media, it's your friends, right? With the subliminal messages, because those hurt more, right? It's work, it's school, it's family, and it's the larger society.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when I say like it's an internal design, intentional, because it's everywhere, and the only image it downplays is the black woman.
Mm-hmm. So then I hear you saying just about like helping even our young people, like helping them to navigate these subliminal messages by counteracting it with different and positive and like empowerment and empowering and affirming messages to just counteract
Right.
what's being fed down her throat about who she is and what she is and that
And
kind
who
of
she
thing.
should be,
Right,
right?
right,
Because
right.
it's the whole world telling you what you should be, right? You
Mhm.
should be this, you should do that, you should have this, you should sound like that, you should talk like this, you should walk like this, you should wear your hair like this. It's the whole world every day that tells you to be everything you're not, right? Because the society has decided that a black woman is this, and they give us this much space,
Mm.
right? So it's teaching our young black girls that there's no box, there's no rules, right? We are magical because we don't play by those rules, because we don't fit in the box. That's our magic. That is our magic. That every time they set a box, we break through it,
Mhm.
right? Every time they set a median for us, we go higher than that, right? We meet expectations. We define new rules, right? But if we don't teach our girls that that's what we're doing, we lose the fight. And if we don't remember that it must be done together in harmony, because we're not enemies, we're sisters, we lose the fight.
Mhm. So that's an interesting point just about the unity and the unified front and loving on each other as sisterhood. I'm going to say I would imagine, but I kind of already know like what you're describing in regards to like the messaging then does play out. Like when we talk about what it plays out, like even on Sidewalk Talk, you briefly touched on this, but I just want to like lift it up again. Is just about like trauma and the layers of trauma that our young people have. And sometimes that is exhibited through behaviors that we often misunderstand and we don't seek to then understand what's under that behavior and for girls especially, but young boys and young men as well, is that like there's a lot of stuff underneath behaviors. Another way this does play out though is in sisterhood. Is in
Absolutely.
sisterhood because if those messages are being told to me, then the way I am then looking at this person that's supposed to be my sister is what?
Very aggressively and what they like to call animalistically, right?
Mm,
Um, um, but again, so that's the accountability piece I talked about on Sidewalk Talk. Is we must hold our young people accountable for that, right? For not addressing their traumas. First, we must teach them that there is trauma and it's not normal, right? You're not coping. You think
mm-hmm,
because you're waking up every day and you're surviving that you're coping. You're not. So we must
mm-hmm,
hold our young people accountable for addressing and getting help for those traumas, right? We have to address mental health in our Black communities. That's just one.
mm-hmm,
That's the part the mentorship comes important, right? There's a stigma on mental health, right? Especially receiving mental health, right? It's either you're crazy or you're sane, and that's all we know, right? But crazy is always the far left, and anything between gets forgotten about,
mm-hmm,
right? And then sane looks like the picture perfect, and that don't exist either,
mm-hmm,
right? Because even for the ones who are privileged and shiny on the outside and look good on paper, internally you don't know what people are dealing with.
right.
Okay, so if we have to address the mental health part and hold our young people accountable for that and support them on that, right? Because sometimes addressing trauma means you are more traumatized first before you heal. And
Definitely,
that's scary to do alone,
definitely.
right? Especially when you're coming from generations who don't believe in that. And no matter how hard you work to change yourself, there are just going to be a set amount of people who just won't accept that,
Mm-hmm,
won't accept that at all.
mm-hmm,
And that's where mentors come into place, right? Because we can't send them out there to get help and then leave them like that,
mm-hmm,
right? You can't send somebody for help, send somebody to get better, and then leave them like that. No, you have the roadmap, share it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you don't have a roadmap, you only got a visual sight, go get them and bring them with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Connect them to networks, connect them to opportunities and other people. I'm big on like physical mentorship. Like I want to show you places,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, a phone call works, and a phone call, I don't want to downplay like, day-to-day small services, right? But the truth is, a lot of times it's just exposure, seeing something different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you said, they wake up in the morning before they even brush their teeth. We're on Instagram and social medias, right? Being told how our day is going to be, and what our limits are for us to complete anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, to undo that, though, it needs to be hard, dedicated work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you, as a little black girl, don't see how you can be better than what you are, right? So let me take you around a whole bunch of black women who've been there and are now here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We need more of that, right? We need representation. We need to. The media do a good job at not displaying us in a positive role as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's why it's our responsibility to do that. If they won't do it, then we have to.
Mm-hmm. So I hear, just already, like you have mentioned, because whether this is sidewalk talk or a live pop up, I'm still about action, right?
Right,
So we were definitely going to get to marching orders, call to action. Like we'll never not
right,
have a conversation and talk about next
right,
steps in action, right? But what
right.
like the pieces that you're bringing out is the fact that like our young people, and also to be clear, I mean, yes, this topic is about girls, but as someone who serves mostly men and then mentoring girls, right? But like professionally, mostly like men before, during, and after
Mhm.
incarceration, and then mentoring girls is kind of where my work is. And yes, this topic is about girls, but I'll also say that a lot of this is definitely super relevant to boys as well, right? In regards to this messaging of the box and like who you need to be and that kind of thing. But the love hate relationship with Black Girl Magic, I think the love hate part is much more present with girls. But I hear you saying, just like, if they're digesting all of this mixed message of love and hate, right? They're digesting negative affirmations. They're digesting subliminal messaging that's telling them all of these things you've already said. Then what you're basically saying is put into them the opposite to counteract what they're
Absolutely,
digesting on a regular basis.
absolutely.
So I've heard you said healing, right?
Yeah,
Healing trauma. I heard you say exposure, exposing them to other things, other places that prove that message wrong that you just
absolutely.
digested for the last 9 years, right? Like you've digested this one message for the last 9 years. For example, and I just thought about this example, but for example, I've heard, many times young people say, like, not even say, but they compare rich areas to white and poor areas to black, right? Like we've never been to middle and upper class black neighborhoods, but
Because
they exist.
society,
So what?
because society and media will only
Exactly.
show you that if you're not a
Exactly.
rapper, a ball player, or
Yeah.
entertainment, that you can't be
Yeah.
rich.
Exactly. And there's
That's
also
why.
exactly, and there's also poor white neighborhoods as well.
That they won't really show like that.
Well, and so
They
this
won't really.
exactly. So this is where your point about exposure comes in, right?
Yes,
Exposing them just by looking and seeing a place that proves that whole message wrong.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what people don't understand, and I want to just put that out there though, that sometimes, most times, this won't be a one-time fix, right?
Right.
Because we got this immediate fix me thing, right?
Mm.
That, oh, I tried it, it didn't work.
Mm.
You've been hearing this negative message of yourself for decades.
Mm.
And if you think one exposure is going to change your whole mindset, you may feel good in that moment, but when you go back home to that environment, that all undo.
Right.
That all
Right.
undo. But
Right.
when you wake up tomorrow, you don't feel so pretty, and and the same things are back on Instagram. That all undo. Like you have to keep. It's a repeated mindset you have to keep having, right? And it just starts by one just telling yourself, I love you. I am worth it. And I am not what they say I am. I determine who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? Given all the mistakes I ever made, given all the things I got on my shoulder, I am still worth it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can still choose me every day. And if I'm choosing me, then I then choose who I am. I decide what I want to be, right? And it's this notion that, right, like, oh, I had a baby already really young, I can't. Oh, I didn't graduate high school, I can't. Oh, I'm too old, I can't. Because that's what the media says, right? No, 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 no. We know plenty of people who had rich black people, successful black people who had their babies young and unwedded and still can do it, right? We know plenty of people who come from parents who were addicts or non-supportive and still can do it, right? We got to get this mindset that if they don't have this perfect background, that it's impossible for them. It's not easy. It's not easy. And no one's going to give it to you. You got to work for it. And most times you have to take it. But it is there and it's doable. And it's doable even easier if we do it together.
But to your point, that also requires healing, right? Like if whatever the background was, healing the trauma, healing my mindset, healing the glasses that I have on, that I'm looking through a certain lens and feel, just like you said earlier about self-esteem, right? Like if I have low self-esteem and I've been digesting this anti-me rhetoric for a long time, to your point, like this folks have been digesting what they've been digesting for a really long time. So you mentioned this on
before you understood you were digesting it, you probably were digesting it. Exactly. Remember, from the time we were told our black skin is ugly, right? Our black features that are unique to just black people are ugly, right? We've been made to think that we look like monkeys. Or whatever like that, or that we don't deserve certain things. You've been hearing that since before you were old enough to understand the damage that was being done. You were programmed very young, right? So, and then they kind of pinned us against each other, the light skin versus the dark skin. So now we have these separate classifications and segregation inside our own race, right? So when I'm teaching that to my sister, if I secretly resent her because she's light skinned and I think dark skin is ugly, do I really want to move forward with her as my sister?
Right.
Right? And then do I trust her because I think she thinks she's better than me?
Right.
So if we don't heal that though, right? Because that's internal. That's nothing she did wrong. That's internal. If we don't heal that though, then we damage ourselves and our futures.
As a result of this internal messaging that we're digesting. And then to your point, like in the Sidewalk Talk episode, as well as Ali's Sidewalk Talk episode about the boys and the men, consistency was brought up, because what you said is just because you do these certain things like healing, exposure, even exposing to a network is what you said, right? So exposing to a network, it's a sisterhood network. Right? They walk in because Brison brought them, right? Because she's my sis, because she has built rapport and relationship, and I know she really cares. And so she walks me into this sisterhood network. But and I'm going to make it very plain in regards to the diet, if you have been eating, like, I'm thinking about McDonald's. No offense to anybody who eats McDonald's, but like, I have not eaten McDonald's in like 10 years, right? If I were to eat McDonald's tomorrow, it would make me sick, right? I would like, or even like super healthy vegan food. That would make me sick too, because I'm not used to that, right? I say that to say that, like, based on her diet for so many years, if she walks into a sisterhood meeting, to your point, there are certain things going on that's going to have her be reluctant to this thing. And that's when mentors walk away, though. They're like, she, and we walk away because
identify with that feeling, right? Like, oh, I'm giving you the tools and it's not working. As a mentor who can identify with that feeling, that's why the message is very clear before you walk in. Identify your reason why. Identify your goals and your objectives beforehand. Right? So when it gets thick and it gets tough, you reroute, but you go back. Right? You find another way in, but you go back. It's not always going to be immediate change. You're trying to undo a mindset, right? And one of the things that I found most challenging is undoing family mindsets, generational mindsets. It's one of the hardest things to break. I can unbreak the society mindset before I can break the family mindset, right? Because my grandmother did it this way, my mama did it this way, her mother, like generations of families who just have this mindset. That is hard to break, because while I may want change, right? All I know is this. And it's very scary to abandon the only thing I know,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like we got parents who were traumatized and grandparents who were traumatized, and they taught that trauma down on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
you've been being taught trauma, not just seeing trauma, taught trauma
Mm-hmm.
from a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get around these people who are telling me that anything other than what my family told me.
Mm-hmm.
How do I believe that? How do I
Mm-hmm.
believe that? So as a mentor, you can't give up. You can't give up, right? But you have to identify that that's going to happen in the beginning. You have to know that that's going to happen. There will be a level of resistance, even when they're verbally saying, "This is what I want," right? This is dope. I like this. Give me more of this. The behavior is not matching the verbal, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be very frustrating to the mentor. I know. I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like I said, reroute, readjust, hit harder.
Right. And so I just want to further emphasize the intergenerational trauma as well as historical trauma, right? So, like, as examples for the audience who may not know, that is, examples are is slavery, is the Holocaust, is the Trail of Tears, like Japanese American internment. Those are all historical traumas. But then to your point, Bryson, that getting passed down from grandparent to parent to child to the baby,
Right.
these and mental health, and like there's cutting edge research called epigenetics, which basically is saying that these like the trauma imprints are being biologically passed down in the DNA. And it's not like official research because they do have to follow generations to like
Right.
really prove it, but it's cutting
Right.
edge and like in the DNA, like yes, learned behavior. My mama did this, my grandmother did this, so right, my great grandmother,
Right.
but also like is this in my blood, like in my DNA? And so epigenetics is finding that it is. But that
Okay.
mental health piece. So what we're saying is, even back to the topic, society's love hate relationships, like relationship with Black Girl Magic, was happening to great grandmother and
Yep.
grandmother and mother. So like
So
that in
great grandma,
itself is generational trauma.
great grandma had it really, really bad, right? So your
Mm-hmm.
great grandmother, she had it the worst,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Because that was at a society where racism and
Yes.
anti-black was at the all-time high, right? So great grandma had it the worst, right? And in her time, there was no social movements, right? She kind of had to just adjust accordingly,
Mm-hmm.
right? There were different consequences for grandma if she challenged the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So she then just told her daughter to obey.
Mm-hmm.
Obey.
Mm-hmm.
If you're light enough, you better pass to avoid what we go through, right? And if you're dark enough, keep your head down, be a good little girl, and then hopefully you can slide through the cracks and be someone's house domestic maid or babysit someone's children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't talk back, and be obedient
Right.
because there was
But
no other options.
right. And then her
Right?
brother was going to play jazz in the clubs for right? Love
Right,
hate. Love
right.
hate.
But she can't though, right?
Facts.
Um, right. And so then you have those two generations who then taught this new generation who are not bound by the same stigmas or the same handcuffs, right? The same rules, and it don't apply anymore. The truth is, you could challenge the status quo. The truth is, you can start a new trend, right? The truth is, big noses are in, big lips are in, dark skin is beautiful. They're paying for things like that now. They're paying thousands of dollars to doctors in Miami to now have the same features they
Mm-hmm.
criticized us for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're paying to get the lip injections, right? Everybody wants the Kylie Jenner lips, but guess what? They're not Kylie Jenner lips. They're black girl lips,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants collagen in their cheek and high cheekbones and stuff like that, right? Those are things we were born with. We were
Mm-hmm.
born with when we came here or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? So it's the love hate. They hated us for it, but then they want it. They just don't want to see it on us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
So
that's the love hate.
so this is my question, right? And this is kind of like the as we wrap up, right? Because this was a like we go hard on these topics and then we right like go get in, get out, right? So this is kind of my question though. We talked about a lot of action steps. You're talking about um dismantling mindsets, rebuilding them, right? Some other people say kind of like unlearning and relearning, deprogramming and reprogramming. It takes a dismantling and a shattering of folks' mindsets by loving them through. Like I find that with, I find that on a regular basis is like, I'm going to tell you the truth though. Right? Like I'm going to tell you the truth in love. And so sometimes that dismantling, like you said earlier, like some of the trauma that we think is normal, right? I'm gonna tell you in love that's not normal, beloved, right? And like let's heal, like let's get healed. And yeah, this is not gonna be like a super pleasurable experience because healing hurts. Okay,
it does.
Like it does. But I'm gonna love you through it.
Challenge everything you think you know.
Right.
Right. I have to challenge everything you think you know. And that's very scary. One, it's very scary and it's painful.
Yes.
It's painful. And then one of the things that we must teach them to understand is that trauma, right, is self-deteriorating, right? As long as you keep that trauma up inside of you, it's eating you out from the inside, right? It's literally killing you. And then it makes you damage future relationships.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
But this is where mentors come into place. Really quick, I have a mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
She came to me with the same mindset that I have now. And because that's not what I know, I challenged her on it. I'm a rebel. And she's talking about, I'm not traumatized. I'm raising children successfully. I have a stable job. I have health insurance. I don't have a criminal record. I look good on paper. What are you talking about? I'm traumatized. I look good on paper. What are you talking about? I can't be traumatized. Until one day, it was accountability, small conversation between she and I. And before I knew it, I threw my lunch against the wall. Her response is what changed me. Her response is what changed me. She didn't get angry. She didn't match my energy. She didn't respond negatively. She gave me more love. And laughed at me, but gave me more love. Right? And she could have completely said, ugh, that's how you deal with trauma. That's how you release your anger. I'm out of here. Right? I'm not dealing with you. I don't have to. But she didn't. She responded with more love and still held me accountable. Right? And still kept working on me. It was that response that said to me, well, maybe she's selling something real good because I've never had anybody respond to me that way when I get angry. I get angry most times to get angry back. It is much easier to be angry, right? It's much easier to be angry, right? Showing unconditional love, that's the hard part. Showing up even when you're angry, that's the hard part. And that's the part we got to push and work on. That sometimes love is going to hurt. Sometimes love is going to be angry, but you must give it anyway. You must show up anyway and show up non-judgmental and loving every time. Eventually, there'll be a breakthrough if you're willing to do the work.
Right. And not switch up between love and hate to the point that you're representing all that stuff she's digesting from society.
Right. So but the main thing my mentor did, I said, she didn't match my energy.
Right.
Her stance with me, no matter how I responded, never changed. Her tone didn't change. Her body language didn't change. Her response to me that day, that instant, that second, nothing changed. She wasn't shocked. Right? I didn't get the normal response I get. Right? Nothing changed. Nothing. Nothing. And then the very next second, she went on like nothing happened. Like she continued to have this conversation with me like nothing happened.
Grace.
Or whatever.
Yes. Right? Yes. Grace through the journey of transformation, right? Grace through the journey of transformation. And the journey of transformation has many lunches thrown across walls, right? Like that is very symbolic of a lot of what our young people, and you push and you poke and you love and you pull and you hug, right? And yeah, like a lunch gets thrown, figuratively, and then you cleaned up the lunch off the wall.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. And then we laughed because her love as a mentor was so strong. We laughed while I was cleaning it up, right? Because I had to clean it up immediately.
Right.
We laughed through that, right? But all again, the emotions that she gave me and made me tap into is life changing.
Right.
Is life changing. I will remember and honor that moment for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we had these conversations, because we still laugh about it to this day, she said, pay it forward. That's it.
Right.
Pay it forward. Remember that emotion and how it was for you. Go out there, give them hell with that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. First, fix yourself, keep healing yourself, but on your transformation, heal and transform someone else with you. Mm-hmm. He said, when you've done that, get somebody else. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is your thing. You got this. And I'm trying to send that movement. This is our thing. We got this. Mm-hmm. We got this. We just got to understand that we got this.
Mm-hmm. And follow through and stay committed.
Committed and consistent. And don't give up when they throw food.
Exactly. I was going to repeat that again, Bryson, because I already said it like 3 times in this one little pop up. Because some of the behaviors like really do turn people off, and like we can talk about very graphic, violent, disgusting, horrifying behaviors that turn people off, which, you know, your girl over here still loving through some behaviors that a lot of people do walk away with, which makes our job over here of those supporting harder because there's less of us out here. So that's always going to be my message, is don't walk away from these behaviors.
There's less of us out here, and then it sends the message that I'm not fixable.
Right.
I'm not fixable, mm-hmm. right? And that everybody is going to give up on me, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. right? And if everybody keep giving up on me, then it's me. I'm broken.
Mm-hmm. And broken. Society already woke me, right? And society already woke me up this morning and told me that.
Right, but you just confirmed it, right? Exactly. You validated, you said it.
Exactly.
You validated that emotion when you walked away from me.
Even though you said you would be my sister. Right?
You told me you got me and you left me there.
And I took a risk on you. You're right about that, Jason.
Right.
You're right about that.
Right. I already didn't want to trust you. I already didn't want to love you back. Right? Mm-hmm. But then you got me to the point where I do love you and I do trust you because I pissed on the floor. You threw me out like a wild animal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's the part that just sets more trauma. Right? Mm-hmm. So even when a young person is healing, if we repeat the trauma they already know, then it just backtracks them. It sends them back to the place we're working hard to get them out of.
Right.
If my mentor had responded with that aggression, all she did would have triggered me from everything I know. She would have triggered that response. Like, yes, this is how people treat me. This is how I know how to respond to. No, instead, she brought me up to a higher level that I've never seen before, right? She educated me and she taught me. She taught me how to deal with my own emotions. Like, wait a minute. If I want to sit with her and her friends, I can't throw my lunch against the wall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if she had, and by the way, if she had not shown up in that way for you, then all the girls that you continue, girls and boys, I mean, all the people, right? Both genders that you now impact and like you know, going to school and in school and like the work that you're doing right now professionally, like, I don't know, like just her sticking with you then allowed you to, as she said, pay it forward, right? So like what's in it for us as like the community, what's in it to stick with whoever you're supporting is that they will then turn and go get more. Right? Absolutely. And so, yeah, so it is about, I think, supporting the long-term investment, is pouring into, you know, those who are supporting so that they can then turn around and do that, you know, themselves. So this topic tonight, right? The society's love-hate relationship with Black Girl Magic, we started on society. We started on what society is putting into them, what they are digesting, you know, good, bad, and indifferent, but like what they are digesting for all their years. Then intergenerational, okay, power, power going off. Then that intergenerational piece. I hope that you didn't freeze, Bryson. But that intergenerational piece.